1-4 in college algebra, we're starting off by solving some equations for x. Nothing crazy about it. The weird thing is it's a bunch of fractions. Yes, you could use a calculator if you really wanted to, but I think you would find it really pretty easy if you just cleared the fractions first. So I'm going to throw parentheses around the whole mamma jamma. I think that would benefit you. And what I got to do is just take every term times the least common multiple of the denominators. You see these two denominators of 6 and 4? Like, not insulting anybody, but if I wrote out a list of multiples of 8, like 4, 8, 12, 16, 24, and a list of multiples of 6, 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, who's the smallest number in both lists? Would you believe that that is 12? And that's the least common multiple. If we take everybody times that, the fractions will go away. So I'm going to put the 12 on the outside of the parentheses and distribute it through. Everybody gets multiplied by 12. So that first dude would turn out to be a 12x. Then I look at the signs. I got a positive 12 times a negative thing right here, so that's going to turn out negative. And here's why I'm doing this, why I'm multiplying through by the least common multiple, because this number 6 goes into 12 evenly. Doesn't 6 go into 12 twice, right? So since it went in there twice, you take that times the numerator of 5 and get yourself a 10. I already figured out ahead of time it was going to be negative, right? So again, 6 went into 12 twice. Take that times the numerator, and I got a 10. Equal sign is coming down. 12 times 3x is 36x. And then I do it again with my fraction. 4 goes into 12 3 times. Take that times the numerator, and I get a 3. Are you kind of cool with how I cleared the fractions out? Now, that equation is Algebra 1 level, baby, right? So get all the x's on one side, get all the numbers on the other side. Please solve for x. You can pause the video to do so. So I'm going to move the 12x over, and that'd be 24x, right? And then I'm going to subtract the 3 over and get negative 13 equals 24. And welcome to what's going to happen on homework. It's not going to come out nice. I think you all kind of saw that. It's like, hey, this ain't going to come out nice. Don't need to divide by 24, so x will equal negative 13 24ths. Do not change it to a decimal. Do reduce it if it reduces. You know, it's like, hey, should I reduce this? Yes, but negative 13 over 24 does not reduce. Let's do that again on 2. I want to clear the fractions, man. 3 and 4 are my denominators. Who do you want to multiply by? Who's the least common multiple between 3 and 4? 12. Well, let's clear it by multiplying by 12. If you have a hard time finding a denominator, just multiply them together. Like 3 times 4 is 12. It'll at least clear the fractions. It might not be the least common multiple, but it's a common multiple. Right? So negative 36x. Figuring out my sign, that is negative. 3 goes into 12 4 times. 60x. And a plus 9. And then we just got to get all the x's on one side and all the numbers on the other. I don't care which way you move them. You know, I usually move my x's first. Boom. Subtract the 9 over. And then divide. Maybe that reduces, so I'll grab my calculator and just like punch that dude in. Negative 13 divided by 96. It's obviously going to be nasty, but if I hit math, enter, enter, it will always reduce the fraction for me, and negative 13, 96 does not reduce. Right? Those only had 2 different denominators. Check this guy out. It's got lots and lots and lots and lots of denominators. Here's my secret. Find the biggest one. Out of all those denominators, who's the biggest one? 6. I'm just going to make a list of multiples of 6, and if this number, like 6, each one of these other denominators go into 6 evenly. Does 3 go into 6 evenly? Yes. 5? Nope. You know what I mean? So 6 is not going to work. The next number I try is 12. 3 goes into 12. 5 does not go into 12, right? So it's not going to work. 18. 5 doesn't go into 18. 24. 3 goes into it, but not 5. 30. Ooh. Does 3 go into 30? Yes. Does 5 go into 30? 2 goes into 30, and 6 goes into 30. So I just went through a list of multiples of 6, and the first one I came across was 30. That's going to work. Again, if you were struggle busing or the problem was harder on the homework, just multiply all the denominators together, and it's going to work for you, right? You could take 3 times 5 times 2 times 6. It'll definitely be a number bigger than 30, but at least it is a common multiple. So 3 goes into 30. 10 times the numerator is 20x. Clear the fractions, check yours with mine, and we'll see if we're golden, pony boy. Fine, 25. I could have made a mistake as well. Call me out if I did. So subtracting the 20x over, I get 5x positive. Subtract that dude over, minus 15, so negative 51. And then that's not going to come out nice, so that's my final. All right. The next couple problems I want to cross out. They're not on this new homework program compared to last year, and I want to write a new problem down. So you see what I have in blue right there? If you would copy that down in the space provided, we'll solve that together. Problem like this, a lot of people are like, hey, can we like cross multiply to make this work? And the answer is probably not with this stupid plus 6 in the way, right? You know, it's not just a fraction equal to another fraction. So what I want to do is I'm going to clear the fractions. So the denominators are 3 and 2. What would you like to multiply by? 6. I love it. What also is different about this is now in these fractions, there's more than one term in the numerator. So we'll do the same thing. How many times does 3 go into 6? Twice. And that number has to be taken times the numerator. So it's like you got to distribute a 2 to it. So it would be 2w plus 4. Let me slow that down a second. 3 went into 6 twice. And I got to take that times the numerator. So it's kind of like you got to do 2 times that parenthesis right there. You got to distribute it. What also happens is we get so concentrated on distributing that numerator, we totally forget that you got to do 6 times 6 right here. Right? You're taking 6 times every term, so that's going to be a plus 36. See if you can take 6 times that weirdo fraction at the end. 2 goes into 6 3 times, but distribute it to the numerator. So 2 went into 6 3 times, and then 3 times all of that would be that in that case. Cool? And then you can solve that for W. So 40, these are like terms right here that you can combine on one side, equals W minus 9, like I subtracted 2W. Then I add the 9 over and get 49 equals W. You may have done it a little different than me. Did we get down to 49 equals W in that case? So, boo! Fractions. Clear them out. Then the next stuff, it is very surprising yet also not surprising how challenging this is for a lot of students. We want to ask to solve for a variable. And I would say this, if I gave you this, 2x plus 3y equals 6, and I asked you to solve that for y, would you feel pretty comfortable doing that? Because you've done that thousands of times, right? You're so used to using x's and y's and all of that stuff. But when we change the letters around, it is a whole different story. But would you believe to solve this for y, I want to first move the 2x over. You don't have to write it down, but I want to move the 2x over. I want to get the term with the y, the term with the y in it all by itself. Y is not all by itself, though. Don't we still have to divide everything by 3? We do the same thing with these, but they're just different. There's parentheses involved. Sometimes there's fractions involved. So who do you want to solve for? In this case, r. Where is r? Inside or outside the parentheses? Inside. What do you think? What do you want to do first? There's 2 moves. They're both correct. Would you like to distribute the p through, or maybe just get rid of the times p? What do you think? Most people are very comfortable distributing. I want to show you the other way to see if you like it. If what you're looking for is inside parentheses, I always say if you could just pretend you can't see in there, you see there's just a p times that whole chunk right there. I'm going to get rid of times p. How do you get rid of times p? Divide. And what's weird for a lot of people is you don't get anything over here. It's like, what is a over p? It's just a over p, right? It's like, all right, that's weird. Then what's in the parentheses is still there. It's 1 plus rt, right? So I'm trying to get the term with the r in it all by itself. Do you see there is like a plus 1 in front of it, right? I got to move that over. How do you get rid of a plus 1? Subtract 1. So I'm going to have a over p minus 1 equals RT. The other thing I'd like you to pay attention to is use the same kind of letters they use. If they're using lowercase letters, you use lowercase. If they're using capital, you use capital, right? So use the same kind of letters they do. And now there is R times T. Are you down with we could divide by T to get that done? Unfortunately, we can't do this. You can't, this is wrong, don't write it down. You can't have A over P minus 1 all over T. You can't have a fraction, A over P, inside of another fraction. It just doesn't work that way. So how to deal with it? I'll just kind of make up a different scenario. If you wanted to divide both sides by 2, is that the same thing as multiplying by 1/2? You know, instead of dividing by t, you could totally multiply by the reciprocal. And what's weird about that is the reciprocal of t is 1 over t, right? So what I'm going to do is, I see two different terms here. This guy's not a problem. He's not a fraction at all. So I could just write that as the minus 1 over t. Like, that's totally cool. I wanted to divide by t. But this dude, I'm going to write it out. You don't have to write it out. Instead of dividing it by t, I'm going to multiply that guy by 1 over t. Taking it times that red dude of 1 over t is the same thing as dividing it by t. And why is that easier? Because a fraction times a fraction is just numerator times numerator. 1 over a is a. And down here, it's either TP or PT. I don't care what order you put it in that case. But that is a really, really, really weird thing. Yes? Number 12. Excuse me. Test question. My bad. Excuse me. I had to clear my throat there. Number 12. They want us to solve that for h. I have a question for you. Before we get going, how many terms do you see? Let me refresh your memory. Terms are separated by addition, subtraction, or equal signs. Got to vote for 2. Got to vote for 1. How many terms do we see? Here's the equal sign. How many things are in there? 2. You've got a V, and you've got this big old box of crap right here, right? So there's no pluses or minuses. I got a question. Are there... Trace. We're going to multiply this times 3 and see if you got it, what I got. This time there is a numerator of 2 instead of a 1, right? And since all of these are just being multiplied together, you can think of 2 pi b squared as one big old fat term, right? You know, I want to get rid of times 2 pi b squared. So I will divide by 2 pi b squared. And that's what I got. Many students have asked in the past, why don't you square root to get rid of the square on the b? That's a good question. What letter were you trying to get all by itself? The c. The c is not being squared. There's no need to square root if the c isn't being squared in that situation. Cool? Again, these are challenging for a lot of people. If you need help with them on homework, don't be embarrassed to ask. I will help you. We'll talk it out. All right, I think you can do 13 without me. Solve that for F. Work with a neighbor, or please pause the video and get that done. So I added 9c over, and then I divided by 5. I don't care if you put the red answer where it's all over 5, or if you wanted to divide each individual term by 5 and get 32 plus 9/5 c. Either one of those is accepted for me. So let's try one more. Solve this guy for n. My first move is to subtract 5m over. And I think we're down with wanting to divide every term by -2, right? I can't do an all over -2 in this case because there is a stinking fraction up there. You can't have a fraction inside of a fraction. So I'm going to individually divide every term by -2. So it helps a lot of people if they want to write that out. But this last guy, I'm not going to divide by -2. I'm instead going to multiply by the reciprocal of that, which is 1 over negative 2. Again, not the opposite reciprocal, just the reciprocal of it. So each nugget got divided by 2. In purple, it's true division. In purple, it's true division. Here in green, I changed it to multiplication. So that would be negative p over 4 minus a over 2 plus 5 halves m equals n. One thing that you got to watch is that you cleaned up your negatives over negatives to become positives kind of stuff, right? Clean that up to where the negative over the negatives became a positive. The reason why a lot of people aren't very good at it is we haven't done much of that in your math life. You know, you've done a little bit here, and then we don't do it for a while. You do a little bit here, and you don't do it for a while. So let me know if you need help. All right. A little bit of story time, right? Would you please read the beginning, and then we'll do the rest together. What did they let X stand for? X is the number of magazines printed, and they tell you up here Y is the total cost of publishing that magazine. They gave you an equation for it already. You don't have to write it. Here's an equation. It's linear, right? It's kind of slope-intercept form, but it's not. Which one of those numbers, 17, 50, or 13, represents the slope? 13 is the slope. Isn't slope rate of change in that case? What is the change in the total cost for each magazine printed? $13 or $17.50? The slope is the change. $13 per magazine is probably what they'll want us to do. So per magazine. What is the cost to get it started? Meaning if they printed 0 magazines, right? You know, when you get started, they printed 0 magazines. We could put 0 in for this. You'd get nothing. There's still a cost. What is the cost they had to get started? That's your y-intercept, right? That's your initial starting value. So 17 $50 bills, y'all. Cool with a basic guy like that. You would think so. Like it's about like how it's worded, right? She asked if it would be negative, you know. So it's the cost is $17.50, and the word cost indicates that it is a negative situation, if that makes sense. You know, it's like, oh, that's going to cost you $1,750, right? Not negative $1,750. The cost takes care of the negative. So good thought. All right, another one I'll let you read. I'll tell you what, I'll just let you do it, right? I'll let you read it, see how well you read it, and do it with work on it with a neighbor. If you have questions, ask. I'll walk around and help right here. So what we should do is put 690,000 in for y in this, because that is the value of the building given to us. So we do that, and let's solve that for x. Pause the video, get that done. So here's the algebra behind it, which is correct, but 60 is not the right answer. What does x stand for in this question? X what? Months. So this is 60 months. But they did not ask how many months. They asked after how many years. So what do you got to do to the number 60? Divide by 12, and that would be 5 years. Please don't say x equals 5 years, because x does not equal 5 years. X equals 60, because x is in months, right? But the answer is 5 years. So please don't get frustrated. Or if you think that you did something wrong, maybe you did nothing wrong, you just didn't read for detail on the wording of it, right? So we did all our algebra correctly. This next guy, no. The total cost of a new automobile, including the sales tax, right, is this much. That's the final thing that you paid, right? When you bought your car and paid tax on it, that's the final, right? That's everything. How much of the total cost is this in sales tax? We're going to cheat the system a little bit and make our lives easier. You know what would be cool to know? What the original price of the car was. Like, you know, when you drive by a car lot, it's got a sticker on it usually, and it says, hey, this car costs $32,000. You know, it's like a sticker on there. Like, what's the OG price of the car? So do this for me. Let x equal the original price. The original price. Just like my candy bar example I was just talking about, it cost $1. That's the original price of it, the sticker price, you know. But then you got to pay tax on it. So would you believe that your final cost is always going to equal this? I don't care if you write this down or not. Is your original price times the tax rate plus your original price. Here's our final cost, $29,998. And you told me that when you tax something, like, don't you have to pay for the candy bar? You got to pay for it with the dollar plus another, like, percentage of it, right? Would you believe you're paying more than 100% of that price, right? You're not paying 100%. You're not paying less than 100%. You're paying more. That's why whatever your tax rate is, you change that to a decimal. Are we down with it being 0.06 as a decimal? But you're going to pay 106% because you've got to buy the car plus an additional 6%. You will have to pay 106% of the price of that car to get it done. The whole thing plus another 6%, right? So what's the price of the car? X. Would you believe that the car cost X dollars? We defined it to be that. And that's a simple one to solve right there because all you got to do is get rid of that 1.06. How do you divide by that 1.06? Did I say divide already? Sorry. Divide both sides by 1.06. So 29,998 divided by 1.06. And did you get 28,300? But the bad thing is that is not the answer to this question. We figured out what the original price of the car was. They didn't ask us that. They asked us how much was the sales tax. So what could I do with these two numbers to figure out how much the sales tax was? Subtract them, right? Subtract them from each other. So bada boom, subtracty. But whenever they tell you a final price and you paid tax on it, you got to put a 1 with it. Add 1 to it because you're going to pay 100% of the car plus another 6%. So I got $16.98. Is that right? $16.98. Subtract those two dogs from each other. If you need help with that guy on homework, I will help you. This is the final price equals 106% times the original price in that case. If it was an 8% sales tax, you do 1.08. Right? Crazy stuff there. Couple more. Suppose the world currently has oil reserves of 765 billion barrels. Assume that on average the reserves decrease by 16 billion barrels of oil each year. Mental check. Are they in the same unit? Yes or no? That's nice, right? If they're not, you got to do some converting, right? Find an equation in this form where T is the number of years now and R is the remaining oil reserves. So let's check this out. Do we have like a rate of change, aka a slope, and do we have a starting value? What do you think? Do we have those two? Yes. Which one's the slope? 16? Cool. My question is, should it be 16 or should it be negative 16? Is it increasing or decreasing? So watch yourself. It should be a negative 16. They want you to use T's and R's, so that's another thing that frustrates a lot of people on homework. You did everything right, but you used X's and Y's instead of T's and R's, right? So watch out for that. How much did they start with? 765 billion barrels. You cool that you had a rate of change that you were losing 16 billion barrels a year on average, and you started with that. Find the total oil reserves 11 years from now. Is 11 a T value or an R value? T. T is time in years. So you can just totally punch that in your calculator. I don't need work shown on that because you wrote the equation. Plus 765, bada boom. And then the main thing is it's not 589, but it's 589 billion barrels, right? So sometimes they have the word billion typed out on the answers already. Sometimes you've got to put it, just read the question carefully. Here's a good one, though. If no other oil is deposited into the reserves, find the number of years before the world's oil reserves will be completely depleted. They are straight up telling you how much reserves you have. R is the reserves, the oil we got in here. And if it's completely depleted, how much oil do you have? None. 0, baby, right? So we're going to put 0 in for R and solve for T. If they say, bro, we're out of oil, okay, we have 0, right? We have 0. So we'll subtract D and divide E. 765 divided by 16. I know they're both negative, but I already know that a negative divided by a negative is a positive, so I got rid of the negatives. It doesn't matter either which way. Did you get 47.8? We'll have to see how they want us to round. If they're asking how many years would it take, that's a good question. Would it take 47 years or 48 years? Let me see what the number was again, 47.8. Would it take 47 years or 48 years? It would actually take 47. Because isn't this less than 48? Are you with me? So it would happen in the 47th year. Like if we started in the year 2000, the year 2047.875 or whatever is probably like in October of that year 2047. You know, it's in the middle of it. So be careful of what the homework program is looking for. They might want to round to the nearest tenth. You might have to say 47 years. You might have to say 48 years. Round how they tell you to round. One last one. It's a good one, and there's a typo on there. Sorry. Right here it says ice cream. Change it to donuts. I like donuts a lot, if you know me very well. A small donut company estimates its revenue. I kind of typed that out for you again. Also, revenue is money coming in, right? Revenue to be this. R equals 2x, where x is how many donuts they sold. The donut company estimates it costs 1.25x plus 200. What is the selling price of each donut? Selling, is that about revenue or is that about cost? I'm going to sell it to you. Is that money coming in for me or money going out for me? I'm the guy, right, with the donuts. If I sell it to you, is that money coming in? Yeah, revenue. Revenue is what that is. How much am I selling it for? X is number of donuts. How much am I selling each one for? $2. Are you okay with that? You look to the revenue equation and go, oh, you're selling them for $2 a donut. Gotcha. In order to break even, what does that mean if you break even? Money coming in, revenue, versus cost, money going out. If I break even, what does that mean? They're the same, right? The money that I spent was the exact same as the money that I made, right? So break even means revenue equals cost. And they're totally the same. Nice. Gotcha. They're totally the same. So I'm going to set those two equations equal to each other. R is 2x. And cost is 1.25x plus 200. Do you see, like, the revenue is 2x, and the cost is $1.25x plus 200. So I wanted to know where they broke even at. And just solve that for x. So if I subtract e, 0.75x equals 200. And then I divide e, 200. Divided by 0.75. I get a decimal. I'm selling donuts. It'd be kind of weird if I sold somebody 266 and 2/3 donuts, right? So I either have to do 266 or 267. If I sold them 266 donuts, would I have broke even, or do I have to go and sell another donut to break even? What do you think? You got to sell another one, right? It's like if it's this is not 266 is not enough donuts, right? I have to sell a 267. So x is about 267 donuts. I guess that would just go right in here. You got to go up and sell them another one. And then they ask the last thing of the day, what is the profit? We don't have a profit equation, so we got to write one. And I know it's still pretty new. Profit equals revenue minus cost. That is the formula to find profit. Money coming in, take away money you spent. One more time, can profit be negative? Can a company lose money? It can totally. So if we get negative answers, that's okay. But I'm going to find the profit equation. It's 2x. Take away the cost. Since there's more than one term in each guy, everybody's sign changes. So I'm going to have a minus 1.25x and a minus 200. And my profit is going to be 75 cents per donut, but there was some startup costs of $200, right? You know. And then they say if I did 80 donuts, so all right, 0.75 times 80, take away 200, negative $140. So we'll leave it that way. And I know we're getting really, really tired. 17 in to profit for 317. 75 cents profit every donut times 317 minus 200. Boom. Didn't I make $37.75 if I did that in that situation? Cool? Awesome. Let us know if you have any questions. Thanks for watching.